Today's is a special topic, it's a fascinating one, is the anthropology of smell and its impact on coffee. So take your time, brew yourself a cup of coffee. We're going to divide this episode in three parts, and it's going to be quite a long one because we have a lot to cover. As a fan of history, I'm always intrigued by the subject and the role it plays in our lives. However, there's not a lot of research that has been done in this field, so I'll be using here a variety of sources and tell you more about anthropology of smell as well as its impact in coffee. Those sources are the Science and Myth of Smell research done by reviewed by Tim Jacob in 2001. There is the Human Olfaction and at the Intersection of Language, Culture and Biology, excellent paper by Asifa Majid in 2021. Hunter-gatherers with their special ways with smell in 2018, and the evolution of flavor and how it made us human by Rob Dunn and Monica Sanchez. Excellent book to read if you're interested in the subject. But before we dive into our topic here, let's define what is anthropology, right? Anthropology is the study of human beings and their cultural and biological diversity, past and present. It encompasses archaeology, which examines the human society of the past, and the cultural anthropology, which explore our beliefs, our values, all those things that are deeply rooted in us, and practices of those different groups of people in the present. So it's about understanding how we end up where we are. With this understanding, I'll delve into the world of coffee and its relationship with anthropology, the smell of that aspect, and how it impacts our understanding of the beverage we love so much. So we are going to divide into three parts. The first is the evolution of smell. We are going to do some history there. Then the smell environment and how your environment, the way where you grew up, your external environment affects how you perceive smell, and then smell and emotions, which is a very important part of our preferences for food, but also for coffee. Because the idea is also to understand why we like certain kind of coffee and more than others. There's a reason behind that. As a business owner, it's also very interesting to know why certain part of the population, maybe it's based on geographical location, maybe on age, maybe on cultural background, prefer slightly more floral coffee versus more chocolatey coffee, etc., etc. And I found this research and this ongoing diversity of flavors and people super interesting. So let's start with the evolution of smell. The smell is one of our oldest and the most, I always say that, the most underrated senses that we have, the olfaction. So first of all, humans are often considered as visual creatures. Meaning that we perceive so many different kind of colors and shapes, right? When we're a kid, we always try to learn those different shapes, the different colors, but actually our olfactory abilities are far more powerful and mysterious. Yes, we can discriminate between millions of colors and hundreds of thousands of sounds, but our sense of smell is even more impressive because we can detect trillion different odors. Of course, it reduces sort of to about tens of thousands in coffee, but all in all, in general, in all the smells of the world, we can detect trillions of it. And despite that vast potential, a sense of smell and smelling always remain a mystery. And in the previous podcast, I explained how the fact that we haven't voiced our opinion, but haven't voiced the smell, what we're smelling, may be a reason why that smell aspect is still a mystery, even though it's super powerful. Because olfaction is one of the first senses to evolve and is a crucial aspect of survival for many creatures. That's why smell is so powerful, because it's instinct, survival instinct. It helps to direct organisms to food and mates, and also warn us of potential dangers. That's where, back in the hunter-gatherers days, toxins and predators were detected through smell. We rely on others as a clue that something is going wrong, right? And our sense of smell is not only important for our safety, but it can also reveal some social cues. In coffee, what happens is that our sense of smell can automatically tell us if we are going to like something or not. You know, you may have experience in a cupping or in a shop when you order your coffee and you start just smelling that filter drip or latte, and you smell a strong sense of bitterness, and that will affect your entire preference, judgment, and likability of the place. It's unconsciously, if you are smelling something that you don't like, whether it's extremely bitterness or super acidic notes that you don't like, you are going to start unconsciously judging and provide a judgment on the business, on the skill, and everything around, and that will affect your interaction with the people in that location, which makes it super interesting. It can make you a friend or foe. And the human brain ability to recognize and process odors has played a significant role in our evolution. Anthropologists, for example, they have found that the part of our brain associated with smell is 12% larger in us, Homo sapiens, compared to Neanderthals, for example, which may be one of the reasons of this evolutionary advantage. That's why we are processing things much faster. We have this emotional aspect of it as well when we are tasting and smelling things. And in the book that I just mentioned by Rob Dunn and Monica Sanchez, where they explore the connection between olfaction and the human evolution, they hypothesize that the ability to distinguish complex aromas allowed ancient humans to enjoy more complex flavors and appreciate cooked food, which was safer and provided more calories than raw meat. That was one of the biggest discovery, right? The discovery of fire, because by cooking the meat, they were able to have much more calories than with raw meat. And if you apply that with coffee, if you ever smell green coffee, it is not pretty. But as soon as you start roasting coffee, and as long as you're not messing up with the roast, if you are relatively like ballpark medium with some flows, you are going to taste much more aromatics, much more complexity than a green coffee. Of course, caveat to that is that you're not burning the coffee or you're not having a super grassy coffee, but anywhere from a very light roast to a medium dark roast, you can taste something. Maybe not something that you like, but you can taste something quite complex that can create more interaction with your brain. That's the idea of cooking, baking, roasting, is that it's, instead of having something super raw and super plain and unidimensional, you have something multi-dimensional. It has some nuances. That's what the roasting is for. So, in conclusion of this first part, the sense of smell has been an essential aspect of human survival and evolution, and from helping us identify potential dangers to shaping our taste preferences and allowing us to evolve into the species we are today. The power of smell should not really be underestimated, really. Part number 2, smell and environment. Our sense of smell is really diverse, once again, and its diversity is a result of a crossroad between genetics and environment. So you come with your own DNA and your own genetics, and then where you are living. Human smell receptors genes vary tremendously across individuals, populations, age groups, and genders. Culture play a huge role in the diversity, and the expression of those genes alters with experiences. You can actually look at the DNA, the gene responsible for a certain part of the smell, and create some association based on different part of the population. The issue is that it's sometimes not consistent. Why? Because, well, in nowadays world, you have access to such an abundance of information and flavors that we can say that, people in, in Florida like this kind of taste, and people in this region of Brazil like this kind of taste. Because everything is interchangeable, it's becoming harder and harder to actually create sort of community of taste unless you kind of stop the growth and the reach of a population and do research on them. Then you can draw some conclusion. But on us human being living in a modern world where we have access to a lot of information, we have access to a lot of cultural diversity, it's very hard to draw some clear evidence. But they've been doing some research on some very small population. For example, the Onji of the Andaman Islands. It's an archipelago in the Indian Oceans. It's a little tribe, and they have a unique relationship with smell. Super interesting. That was based on the book again, and their calendar is based on the fragrances of flowers that bloom at different time of the year. And they name each season not based on what flowers bloom, but based on the smell of the flower. And they believe that it has its own knows its own aroma force. So they literally encompass smell as part of their calendar. Another very interesting tribe is the Seri or Comcac in Sonora, Mexico. They have a language infused with many words of smell and olfactory metaphors for emotions. And however, as the community underwent urbanization, they lost touch with the smell of certain plants and animals, such as green sea turtles, snails, and this led to a loss of language and so the sort of medicinal knowledge, according to a study published by the Anthropological Linguistics. So what is super interesting is that for that tribe, they have included smell as part of some metaphoric explanation and emotion. So they are they're expressing their sense of smell with words. And that was the part that I was mentioning a lot, is that the reason why smell is so tricky is because we are not using it in our daily life when we express our thoughts. And what's been interesting here is that as that population become more and more urbanized, they are losing their sense of smell, because in an urban environment, we are deodorizing everything, right? Just imagine yourself in the middle of a very lush forest. There's a lot of smell out there, versus in the middle of a mall. There's no smell in there, except if they just wash the floor, right? So unfortunately, our sense of smell is not immune to environmental factor, and the risk of olfactory dysfunction increases with also social factors like poverty. The primary risk of this olfactory dysfunction is pollution, which often tend to be worse in low socioeconomic areas. In urban environments, if you are in a more rural environment, well, you have access to more nature and therefore more smell. As we are urbanizing slowly everything, and if that urbanization is not controlled properly, in order to decrease pollution will affect our ability to smell, because pollution caused olfactory dysfunction is a clear case of something we can call sensory iniquity, and it can be discussed in a context of environmental injustice and also health disparity research. So in that section about smell environment, we see how even in a same country or in a same community, if you are living in a lifestyle which is super deodorized versus or super sanitized and super controlled in the smell versus a more natural one, well, you are slowly losing that sense of smell, because everything will be either through food, which happens maybe 3, 4, 5 times a day, depending how often do you eat, or through artificial flavors like sanitizers, like cleaning products, soaps, etc., etc. Versus if you're living in a more either rural environment or more nature-based environment, you are exposed to all kind of smell. And when I say smell, I'm not only talking about good smell and bad smell. I'm just talking about smell in general. If we apply that to coffee, well, it's all about having a diversity of smell, right? If we are just tasting one coffee every single day, we are not going to improve our sensory lexicon. The best way to improve your sensory lexicon is to try different kind of coffee from different origin, different varieties, different elevation, etc., etc. And the richer that sort of coffee selection you have when you are tasting coffee, when you're having coffee in the morning, or when you're cupping, the better your sensory lexicon, your language, and the better you will be you'll be able to taste. And we can take it out of the cupping table in the daily life. The idea is to have a diversity of flavors and diversity of experiences that expose you to different kind of smell, good one as well as bad ones. The idea here is to really expand your knowledge, because a lot of coffee professionals haven't even tried, all the defects in the sensory wheel, for example, because nowadays third wave cafes and roasters are getting better and better coffee. We are not used to taste super bad coffee unless you are taking a SCA class or Q grading class. So sometimes some coffees have a manure taste, some coffees have a petroleum taste, but we are so disconnected from those smells that we don't even perceive them sometimes. And that's just a few examples of it. So the idea of smell and environment is that your environment will shape your ability to smell, and being mindful about that is very important. So now we're going to talk about the unique connection between smell and memory and why it's so powerful, right? Smell has an extraordinary power. You smell a scent and it takes you right back to what it was like. It's qualitatively different from the other scents. A song might remind you of a place, right? Like a song that reminds you of that place. It reminds you of a home, a country, a city, a site, like a picture, a sculpture might remind you of a city you visited, or a feeling you had with someone in somewhere. But the smell is taking you there. That's the biggest difference between smell and the other senses, except touch, right? If you are touching, let's say, someone, like you, often those memories, example is with like an old grandma pie, which I never understood. Every coffee professional, when they tasted the first Ethiopian natural, they remember the old grandma blueberry pie. Everyone has the same story. I'm not sure who this grandma is, but I would love to meet her, because I've never tried a blueberry tart in my life. So if you have your grandma making that blueberry tart, please let me know. I would love to try it. Unfortunately, mine didn't have blueberries. But all to say that touch, obviously, when you're touching that pie, those memories, you have the effect immediately. But the sound maybe of music will remind you of that grandma. The sight of it, a picture of the grandma or a picture of a blueberry tart will remind you of her. But the smell of that magical tart in this Ethiopian natural is taking you there. And that's what makes it so powerful. That's why smell is so emotional. And that's why coffee is so complex. And by those complexity, we can recreate those emotions. That's why I base our entire values and principle and brand. Memory Coffee Lab is really about creating sensory excellence and sensory memories because smell is affected by your memory. And the reason for this is that our memories is, as I said, it gets tagged with that smell. When we encounter scent, it travels directly in the brain's limbic area, which is involved in both emotion and memory. That's the amazing thing. Smell affects both the emotional aspect of it and our memory. And if it affects both, well, it affects our decisions, which will affect our future. It's a beautiful full circle, which is also linked to our logo, where your memory, your past, and your emotion affect your decision, which will affect your future. That's why smell can bring back vivid memories and strong emotions wherever they are positive or negative. Nothing is always a yin and yang, black and white. Have you ever, for example, smelled something and been transported, back to your childhood? Maybe it's the scent of this blueberry pie that I've never tried, or the baked cookie, or the smell of the ocean on a summer day if you were luckily raised and born by the sea. For me, I have a lot of smell and memory, and you can check my story with sensory, where I explain everything from my childhood in Paris to all the countries I visited and affected how I smell things. But your childhood has a specific part in your memory and your emotion. So smell has the power to evoke those memories and emotions in a way that basically nothing else can. There's nothing else that can evoke those memories so vividly than smells. And it's fascinating to think about the way our brain processes smells. How is that a single scent can bring back so many memories and emotion all at once? And why is that some scents have this power while others don't? Right? There's a question that scientists are still trying to answer. But what we do know is that the connection between smell and memory is real, and it's a powerful thing. And that's why in coffee, the amazing part is that when I source coffee, sometimes I associate it with a memory, with a very strong personal memory, but I also try to create that memory and think that if that memory will be understood by you guys. So that's why when I source coffee, I also brew it sometimes on our tasting. I made it test by different people, because what talks to me might be different for someone else. And sometimes I'm a little bit selfish and I do things that really, really talks to me. For example, our Sudan Rume from Granja La Esperanza, it's really reminding me of Mediterranean. It's a mix of South of France, Italy, Middle East, all combined together. I have a beautiful picture, a beautiful memory of summer vacations, which is very, very personal. And so on that one is more like a emotional decision for me to source this excellent coffee, others as well. But you see, we have all different ways of describing chocolate, of citrus fruit, etc., etc. Some people from some countries never ever tried strawberries, for example. Berries are something very mostly Western. Other countries have different varieties of passion fruits, whereas here in the supermarket there's only one passion fruit. Same for tomatoes or potatoes, etc., etc. And being able to create an experience with smell is what I'm trying to do every day at Memory Coffee Lab, by selecting very few lots. We are very, very picky on the coffee we are sourcing, because we really want to create a memorable experience that will bring you back to a memory. It might be the memory that I'm thinking about, or another one. For example, once again, that Ethiopian natural that everyone compare it to their grandma's berry tart. For me, it's more a berry milk, because back in school in France in the canteen we had this box of berry milk that it brings me right back to not my grandma but the wonderful lady at the canteen. So we've explored the fascinating world of smell, its role in anthropology, and how it affects the world of coffee, from its evolution and impact on human survival to its relationship with environment and culture, to the power it holds in memory and emotions. Our sense of smell is an integral part of lives. Let us not underestimate the importance of this often overlooked sense and the role it plays in our experiences and memories. Thank you again for tuning in, and until next time, happy sipping, have a great day, and see you next time for another episode.